Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video we're going to read some of your or who's ever's scary stories from Reddit, and I have a feeling already that I'm going to regret my decision of not reading them beforehand, but we're going to try to take this. I like the honest reactions, and hopefully I picked some good ones. I kind of skimmed through it but not really read it, you know. Read it, okay, sorry. In hopes that I picked good ones. They were unfortunately, or fortunately, I'm not sure which way, the most upvoted ones, because they kind of, I guess everyone else liked them as well. I didn't pick them because that, but I picked them just because I thought we would like them. So let's get into it. This is called Not My Mother, and it is by Meows and Boo. And I've got some spare hairs, baby hairs, that are tickling my forehead. Okay. So this story happened about 11 years ago. I was a senior in high school at the time, but it is the single most mind-boggling thing that I have ever experienced. It's also important to note that it happened in mid-December. I am from Iowa, and the winters here get cold at night. Like if you get stuck outside, you will die of cold. That, plus the snowfall, makes everything dead silent. You can hear anything and everything inside the house and even immediately outside of it. Well, me and my best friend were hanging out in the family's walkout basement, just having a boring winter night playing video games. We were also the only ones home. The reason it was just us is because my mother went from work straight to the bar to grab a few drinks with coworkers, so me and my friend thought it would be a good idea to break into the family wine and live a little. As we were sitting there opening up the first bottle, I hear the door to the garage open and shut, or slam shut immediately. I immediately go, oh shit, and start looking for places to hide the bottle. My friend then says, I thought you said your mom was supposed to be out all night. She was, I replied, and then I heard a few heavy stomps and hear my mother yell out the poster's name, but it has Meows and Boo. Anyone home? I yell back up the stairs, yep, just hanging out in the basement. I hear a few more steps from the garage door towards the stairs, and she yells out, can you come up and help me with something? I need your help up here. I reply back while frantically trying to find a good place to hide the wine bottle. Yep, give me a minute. Then there was silence for about 20 seconds. Anyone down there with you? She yelled back in a more concerned, serious tone, and a voice that was slightly off of my mother's. This was the first thing that told me something wasn't right. Our family never cared if anyone was over, as our house was the very open house to all family and friends, and the voice, it was just wrong. Like it sounded like my mother's, but it was missing something that I couldn't put my finger on. Weirded out, I replied, just Colton. After I yelled that back to her, I found a good place to hide the bottle and began walking up the steps to the next level. Now, as I was walking up the steps, I couldn't help but feel the overcoming silence of the house and the slight electric twinge that something isn't right. When I got to the top of the steps, I look over to where the door to the garage is and the kitchen right next to it, and it's pitch black. If all the lights were off, there was no moonlight shining through my windows, nothing. I walked over to the kitchen, yelling out, Mom, where are you? There was no reply. Just silence and darkness. I feel the electric twinge turn into full needles, and my adrenaline kicking in full force. I have to get out of here as fast as possible. My mother wasn't home. I run back downstairs, grabbing my coat along the way. What's wrong? Colton says. My mom's not home. I reply as fast as I can, looking for my truck keys. What do you mean? We were just talking to her. I could see the confusion in his face. There's no one home. We need to leave now. I took a few steps towards the back of the door that opens up to the yard, and I see my dog shaking on the couch and my cat growling behind it. I couldn't leave them. I just knew that if we left, something would happen. Are we leaving? Colton said, still confused. No, I can't leave them here alone. Something is really off. I'm going to call my mom and figure this out. I pull out my phone and call my mom. She picks up immediately. What's going on? She answers. Mom, were you home? I heard you yelling for me from the second level, and when I went up there, you weren't there. I said frantically, hoping that she was playing a joke. No, I'm just leaving the bar. I wasn't feeling very well. Are you okay? What do you mean you heard me? I fill her in on the whole story, and she rushes home. Colton and I stayed in the basement with the animals until she got home. but before she did, you could hear something upstairs. Not walking or sitting on things, but a pressure in the air, like a black hole, was slowly moving from one room to the next. And the word that I would instinctively describe it as hungry. When she got home, she could feel the thing leave just as quick as it came, like an overbearing predatory presence just had flown away. We still have never figured out what the heck it was. This is just one story of very unexplainable things that have happened to us. But this is the easiest to write down, and one that I was happy to have a witness. My mother has passed away now, and I have moved to Arizona, but whenever I go back to Iowa, I see Colton, and he still gets creeped out by what happened. I will never truly know what happened, but I know that whatever it was that had my mother's voice, it was evil, and it was hungry. That gives me chills. Like, I'm not hugely into the paranormal. I think these are the stories of the paranormal, but that is what's popping up on True Scary Stories. But they're very interesting. That very much sounds demonic, but I'm glad that I've always heard that the demons, they can take on any shape and form and voice and basically do whatever they can to trick you. So just keep that in mind when if or when or you hear things. Honestly, I have no advice for you on what to do if you experience something like this. So I'm just going to read the story, but that would freak the crap out of me. That was number one. Number two, it's relatively long. It's called Working the Night Shift in a Nursing Home, and I Never Experienced Fear Like I Did That Night, by Throwaway 199-11342. A lot of numbers afterwards, but by Throwaway. And again, I haven't read these beforehand, so we'll see how it goes. I know the third one is going to be a little difficult to read because it's not broken into paragraphs, and it's just all kind of seems to be jumbled together. But this is the second one. I work in a nursing home, and my schedule consists of days, evenings, and nights. It's rough transitioning between days and nights, but everyone that works here has the same shift, so we just get through them together. The building has about 100 residents with 3 floors. The building is shaped like an L with, all nursing homes, are they shaped like L's and U's? I've noticed that. Is that just where I'm from, or is it just all the nursing homes that it's besides the point. Okay. Shaped like an L with a north and south wing and the nursing stations in the middle. The 3rd floor currently only has a few residents living there due to the construction, with one of the wings completely shut down because they're ripping out the walls. Due to only a few residents being on that floor, only one nurse is required to be on duty on that floor. I've worked the night shift alone on that floor many times and never really experienced anything scary or weird. Sure, it's creepy and dark at night, but that was it. I never believed in the paranormal at all. I had the mindset that I had to see it to believe it. I'm a huge fan of true crime and scary stories and true crime and paranormal documentaries. However, a few of the coworkers over the years had talked about how the 3rd floor is haunted. They'd hear knocks at night and see weird things. I was always intrigued to hear about it, but we would always just laugh it off. But that night, a few weeks ago, has really started to change my mind. I was sitting in the nursing station, watching movies and playing on my phone. I had just done my rounds and answered a call bell. I had felt off that night and constantly had that feeling of being watched. I also kept on thinking that I was seeing things out of the corner of my eye. I do that a lot. The next part is hard to explain, but I'll try as best as I can. As I was sitting there, all of a sudden, a shadow dropped from the ceiling, hovered over me, but by the time I realized what I was seeing, it was gone. My heart jumped, and I jumped out of my chair. There was no way it would be a shadow from anything or a car passing by. The only windows were out into the forest with nothing but trees for miles. After a few moments, I calmed down. I left the nursing station to go check on my residents. Nothing seemed amiss, and none of them were awake, except for the little old lady at the end of the hall watching her TV shows. As I walked back to the nursing station, I swore I saw feet or a shadow moving under the crack of the door leading to the wing that was closed for construction. I opened the door just to make sure it wasn't a wandering resident from another floor, which happens quite often, but there was no one there. I walked back to the nursing station, freaked out, still feeling like someone or something was watching me. I settled back into my chair and tried to watch TikTok videos to get my mind off of it. Yes. I was sitting with my back to the window, facing the door. After about an hour of watching videos, I glanced at the clock. It was 3:03. I remember being slightly annoyed as my coworker had promised to come up at 2:50 so I could have my break and go out to my car and have a smoke. Unhealthy, I know. I'm trying to quit, but that night I needed one. All of a sudden, I hear 3 knocks on the window behind me. I jumped up, looked out the window, and there was nothing there. Flight mode took over. I just darted down the hall, running to my coworker, who was just coming off the elevator. Now, bear in mind, I'm on the 3rd floor, which is pretty high up. There was no stairway, tree, or ladder outside that window, so it was impossible for one person to be outside knocking on the window. I immediately asked my coworker if she knocked or heard any knocking, and she said no. She could see how shaken up I was and offered to switch floors for the remainder of the shift. I was very thankful, as being on the 2nd floor means you're with another nurse, so I wouldn't be alone. I went out to my car and had a few smokes and just tried to calm down. I talked to the nurse on the 2nd floor. She didn't seem too surprised. She's heard of knocking up there and seen and heard things she can't explain. A lot of people have died up there, and after that night, I honestly don't know what to believe anymore. I haven't ever felt fear like that, and I've since worked a few night shifts up there and didn't experience anything like that again. Could it be that I was just tired? I don't know, but I won't ever forget how I felt that night. I don't see how people work at like nursing homes and psychiatric hospitals and things like that in the middle of the night. I give all props to you if you do, because that would terrify me alone. Just being there at nighttime, pretty much kind of by yourself. I mean, you're with patients and stuff, but no, not me. That is pretty creepy. I mean, it's like 3:03, which is said to be the hour of more paranormal activity, if you believe in that stuff. Okay, number 3. Okay, my hair is falling. Let's just go ahead and take this down. This one is called Home Alone by Blood Red 287. Okay, and it says, this is the one that's not really written in paragraphs or anything, and it's so that in itself makes it a little more difficult to read. It's probably just me because I'm sometimes special. Anyway, I don't think I have to say this, but I swear this story is completely true. So this happened a few years ago when I was in 5th grade going to 6th grade. I started piano lessons. I absolutely hated playing piano. I loved it. I'm not good at it, but I did it in college and I absolutely loved it. But anyway, that's okay. The organ piano player at my church offered me free lessons because my mom helped out a lot. He was a very nice man. I just hated playing the piano. My family had bought an old piano from someone my family knew, so I would be able to practice for an hour at home every day. One night near Christmas, when my brother was at a friend's house and my parents were at a dinner for my dad's work, I was practicing piano. The only lights that were on the top of the piano, so I could see the music and the dim lights from the Christmas tree. Oh, that's a nice ambiance. But anyway, let's get with it. The piano was against a wall with my back to the door. To my right was the hallway that leads to the bedrooms, and on my left was the living room where the tree was. There was no sound other than me occasionally hitting the key. I started having this weird feeling of dread when I looked down the hallway. I'm going to have to edit some of these words. So let's go back. I started hearing something that was creeping me out, or something along the lines of that. That's the only time I'll edit these stories, is some grammar and some words that I don't want on my videos. So I do apologize for that. Okay, it sounded like breathing. I kept trying to convince myself that it was just the fan, but I was still unsure. I sat at the piano and started really practicing, just in case there really was a person down there waiting for me to walk down the hall. I had seen a few horror movies, so I knew not to move near a sound. After a few minutes, I told myself out loud that I should get some water. So I stood up and walked to the kitchen that was on the other side of the wall. I didn't have a phone in 6th grade, so I would usually use my parents' or house phone. The second I stood, I heard a small gasp, like, oh, that just gave me chills. like sound coming from the hallway. I pretended not to hear it. In the biggest drawer, closest to the floor, my dad kept a few of his smaller tools and nails and stuff. I remember seeing a large box cutter type thing. I grabbed it, then I grabbed the house phone that was in the kitchen. I accidentally grabbed the phone too hard, causing me to hit a button that let out a beep. The sound is never really that loud, but when it's nighttime and me being home alone, it was almost deafening to me in my panic state. I then heard a low grunt-like sound coming from the hall, then footsteps. My fight or flight instinct kicked in, mixing with my adrenaline, and I ripped open the sliding back door and ran to the side of my house, basically flying over my fence, dropping the box cutter in the process. I ran as fast as I could down the block because I could hear him trying to get over the fence. I looked back like an idiot and saw the silhouette of what I'm guessing was a 6-foot-tall man chasing me. That's when I saw one of my neighbor's lights come on, and I ran over and started banging on the door. I quickly looked to see where the man was, and he started sprinting the opposite way. My neighbor let me in and called the police and helped me calm down. I had somehow escaped with my life with only a few minor scrapes and cuts on my knees and feet. When the police got to my house, they figured out how the man got in. My brother had accidentally left his window cracked open, and the man was able to cut open the screen and open the window the rest of the way. They also found a rope, duct tape, multiple knives on the ground of the hallway. My neighbor across the street had a camera facing the road because people had been stealing mail. The police looked through the footage and found one man would watch our house for a few minutes every few hours for a week. He knew I was home alone that night for the next few weeks. They had cops watching our house until we moved. They never caught the man, but he is the reason I now have severe anxiety and I'm paranoid. Oh, that one. Eesh. Back in the day, I started staying by myself when I was about, I think, 9 years old. And I couldn't even imagine that now because my daughter is 8 and leaving her home alone. No. I couldn't fathom it, that she still seems too young. I guess it was the way that I was raised. My parents owned a sporting goods store, I'll say it like that, when I was younger. I basically lived there from being a baby until I was staying home by myself. So they would drop me off at the bus there. Now, sporting goods, I'm just going to leave that up to your own imagination of what type of hunting utensils that they sold. So I was very well brought up in hunting and sporting type arsenals. I'm trying not to say the word because I don't want to get demonetized. But my dad always told us that he's not going to teach us how to sign a restraining order because that's just a piece of paper, but he will teach us how to defend ourselves. So at 9 years old, I went deer hunting. Therefore, I knew how to use certain weapons that you would go deer hunting with. And that was the only time I ever went deer hunting because I shot Bambi. And this was about the same time, I guess 6th grade, somewhere around in there, 5th, 6th. About the same time I was staying home by myself. You just have to know to teach your children how to defend themselves if need be. Hopefully that never comes. Kudos to this person for at least grabbing a box cutter and then running and paying attention to his surroundings, because it could have ended way, way worse. I'm saying things and I'm trying not to get myself demonetized, so I'm just going to end this here. But that's the video of reading your Reddit stories. And if I did use one of your Reddit stories or one of the stories that you wrote, I do thank you for your sharing your stories, and I hope you enjoyed it. I know I'm not the best actress, reader, person out there, but I like to share your stories as well, in hopes that in case other people don't get on Reddit, that I can share their stories with them through this video. And I do mention the posters or the creators of these posts so that they can get the credit that they do deserve. And again, thank you for sharing your stories. They're really interesting and fun to read. But I will end this here, and I will see you guys next time.